Mary de Bohun was the wife of Henry Bolingbroke and the mother of King Henry V. But at the time of her death neither her husband nor son were destined for the throne, as Henry's cousin, Richard II, sat on the throne of England. This documentary looks at the life of Mary de Bohun, a woman who, despite the coup of her husband, never quite made it to be queen. Mary born around 1369. It seems that her birth was not recorded, so historians are uncertain when and where she was exactly born, but it is believed she may have been born in the county of Derbyshire in England. It seems that her birth was not recorded, so historians are uncertain when and where she was exactly born, but it is believed she may have been born in the county of Derbyshire in England. And her mother, Joan Fitzalan. Mary would have an older sister, Eleanor, who was born around 1366. Both Mary and Eleanor would be the heiress to their father's estate, as there was no male heir. This made them both a very good match for marriage. Eleanor would marry Thomas of Woodstock, 1st Duke of Gloucester. Thomas was the youngest born child of King Edward III. When Mary's and Eleanor's father died in 1380, events took a sinister turn when their father's considerable estates and titles, including the title of Countess of Hereford, was divided between them. Both Eleanor and Thomas, along with John of Gaunt, would plot to force Mary into becoming a nun, in order that when she entered a convent she would give up her half of her inheritance to her sister and her husband. When Mary's aunt found out what was being plotted, she would move her to Arundel Castle in Sussex in England. Here she was married to Henry IV in 1380. Henry was son of John of Gaunt, and thus a grandson of Edward III. John of Gaunt was the third surviving son of the Edward III. At the time of their marriage, Mary would have been around 11 years old and Henry would have been about 13. In 1386, at the age of 17, Mary would give birth to her first child and son with Henry. Their son would be called Henry and would become the future Henry V. In their marriage they would have a further 5 children together. 3 more sons called Thomas, John, probably after Henry's father John of Gaunt and Humphrey, and 2 daughters, Blanche and Philippa, called after her husband's mother and grandmother respectively. During her life with her husband, she would suffer due to rebellions, political strife at court. In 1387, Henry would take part in the Lords Appellants' rebellion against his cousin and monarch at that time, Richard II. In 1390 and 1392, Henry would be part of 2 failed military expeditions to modern-day Lithuania supporting the Teutonic Knights. Later, in 1394 he would take a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where he would claim an unfulfilled claim of a new crusade. In mid-1394, Mary would pass away at the age of 25. The cause of her death was most likely due to complications of childbirth, which was not uncommon at that time, following the birth of her last and second daughter Philippa. Mary would be buried at the Collegiate Church of Annunciation of Our Lady of the Newark in Leicester in England. She would never see her husband or son become kings of England. After Mary's death, her husband married Joan of Navarre, who became Queen Consort of England. Mary de Bohun lived a short but eventful life as a noblewoman, queen, and mother, and left a notable legacy in her patronage of religious orders. Her children would go on to play significant roles in English history, particularly her son, King Henry V, who would later win important victories against the French in the 100 Years' War.